There you go. That's the lineup, and we'll start with that today. Mark?
Indeed. Well, that plan has been suspended. The Ruga settlement plan has been suspended. However, it would seem the controversy that preceded it is yet to settle. I mean, people are still talking about it, and there are still fears that it could be reintroduced. After all, it was only suspended. This morning, we have with us Salibi Momale, who is a permanent commissioner, the Kaduna State Peace Commission, is a former senior lecturer, Center for Dryland Agriculture at the Bayero University in Kano. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much.
And we also have with us Abba Ejembi, who is a legal practitioner. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much.
Well, gentlemen, you have seen the controversy that this has thrown up. The matter has also, it would seem, begin to raise ethnic divisions. It's also causing a lot of rancor along north-south divide. Sometimes even politics seems to be creeping into it. What do you make of all that has happened so far, and what are your thoughts moving forward? Let me start with you, Mr. Ejembi.
Thank you very much. Yeah, this suspension of the Ruga establishment project, like you said, has generated intense controversy and also suspicion. But it's happening within a context of serious division between 2015 and now. I mean, even 2014, during the campaigns towards the presidential election, very divisive comments were made. The election was run on the basis of mutual suspicion, and the outcome can only be imagined. That is where we are. And thereafter, the comments of the president, after he emerged as president, particularly in the constitution of his cabinet, did not also help matters. It's 97%, 5% mathematical his appointment was extremely divisive, because once you emerge as the president, you ought to be the president of all persons. Everybody, whether those who voted against you or those who voted for you, participated in electing you. Not necessarily voting for you, but the process. Without that process, then your election will be a sham. So once you take the oath of office, part of the oath you take is to deal with everybody on equal basis, on the basis of fairness, not on the basis of whether they supported you or not. And then, well, in 2017, like this thing started, with the implementation, or rather the passage of not just the passage, it was the mass killing, particularly in Benue. It started on the 24th of December, actually, from a community where I know very well. The early morning of the 24th of December 2016, people moved into a community called Odonto, Tupo local government, and opened fire on the people. And then from January, we started seeing the killings in Benue, in Taraba, and other places. So the comments of people in government at the time was extremely very unhelpful. When the leaders of the Benue delegation went to visit the president, asked them to allow peace to reign by allowing their brothers to live with them. And then the special advisor on media to the president, Mr. Femi Adesina, said the option was between being alive and being killed over your land. Why not relinquish your land? And the Minister of Defense also warned the Benue people that the law, the anti-open grazing law, was going to create problem, and that they warned. So such comments immediately became the government and the people of Benue or the people of Taraba. That wasn't very helpful. Now, with this Ruga establishment, with the suspension, the surreptitious way that signposts were mounted also increased fears that because this is a government that had made certain comments in the past that they're going to impose, it was appearing to them that they're going to impose their will on the people, irrespective of whether the people wanted this or not. Also, the process leading to it was not inclusive. There wasn't any communication with the people. The people were not aware that just to wake up and find a signpost mounted under this context, there was bound to be serious controversy. There is also another context within which this controversy is holding. Immediately after the suspension, and that came before just after the comment of the Vice President, that the Ruga project was not the National Livestock Transformation Plan that was domiciled in his office, but it was a different program. Now, after the suspension, comments like the National Livestock Transformation Program plan was going to go ahead. Now, what is the distinction between the two? It's a matter of nomenclature. The 5 pillars of the National Livestock Transformation Plan include setting up the kind of things that the Ruga establishment thing was going to achieve. So the people are quite suspicious, and government has not done enough in sensitizing people. There is a third context, which is that people are afraid because of the history over time of their relationship with the herders, that this is a deliberate ploy to take over their land, change the demography of their states, of their communities, with government support. It is that context that is generating all the fears. Government has not done much in allaying those fears. And I don't, the most interesting part of it is that if you look at the National Livestock Transformation Plan, the strategy paper, it talks about the pilot states, 7 of them. The first is Adamawa, Benue, Kaduna, Plateau, Nasarawa, Zamfara, and choose the 7th one now. 7 of them. Only Zamfara is in the northwest, which historically, to a lot of people, appear to be where the bulk of the Fulani people reside. And they have large expanse of land. So why are you choosing states where the land is not that available, where even the available land is used for other purposes, not for grazing?
Now,
so that is a suspicion. It's all this context that makes people extremely suspicious that there is an ulterior motive.
Interestingly, you talk about 7 states. I mean, initially when we heard about
12.
Yeah, there were 12 of them. So I don't know what is
Yes, look at the strategy paper.
Yeah.
I took time to look at it, and it's 7 states that we have on the paper, on the strategy paper.
We were told that for those states, I mean, for the National Livestock Transformation Plan, the states who signed up voluntarily. Now, we don't know if that was the situation with the states that you saw, because the first state that raised the alarm about this Ruga settlement plan was Benue State, which you said was also on the strategy paper.
There.
Okay, but let's talk to Mr. Salebi Momale now, who, I mean, you are on the Kaduna State Peace Commission. Your state has known some crisis as well. Sometimes they say it is between farmers and herdsmen. Sometimes it's about settlers and indigents and things of the sort. From what you have seen, I know that you've spoken on this. You say that this has come up because government imposed policies and programs which retard agriculture and are fueling violence amongst crop and animal farmers. Were those your thoughts? Is it because government imposed this, or what precisely do you see as a problem here?
Thank you very much for this excellent morning platform. You know, Nigeria, like we all know, is a very vast country with diverse resources and extreme opportunities for development. And one of the major challenges we have faced in the past, and which we are still unable to overcome, is some of these very narrow, what I call very narrow-based sentiments. Sentiments that are driven not by knowledge, not by evidence, but by political considerations, which are in themselves situated within very local contexts. We have seen the emergence of politics where people try to gain political popularity by promoting not national ideals, but very sentimental ideals. And it is very unfortunate, very, very unfortunate for a country like Nigeria, where you see people of knowledge, people who are supposed to be custodians of wisdom, people who are supposed to promote national ideals to help Nigeria organize and move forward, moving the country backwards, through very narrow views and then promoting statements and ideas that have no basis. Fundamentally, that is what it is. Secondly, facts are on ground. Information is readily available, and scientific knowledge is there to guide Nigeria towards structuring its paths towards development. Coming back to what people are calling the Ruga, you see, I wonder what actually it means and what the proponents actually want to say or want to achieve with it. We do know that there are challenges with management of rural land resources in Nigeria, as it is in many other countries. There are issues that have to deal with people's livelihoods, the level of productivity, and management of inter-community relations. And I must say that the capacity of governments and the capacity of our institutions to manage relations among rural producers over these years has significantly declined, and this has allowed for some of these varied opinions and influences that we have seen. Again, it is an issue of development, an issue of improving the capacity of the people and what they are able to do and what they are able to produce. Both the crop farming communities and the livestock producing communities in most of Nigeria's rural areas have been abandoned over these years by our governments, by our agricultural extension services, the agricultural information services. I do know there are some efforts here and there that have helped improve certain productions, certain sectors, like we have seen in the rice value chain, the cassava value chain in recent years. But for the many other key crops, you can see that the capacity and performance of the Nigerian institutions in helping our farmers and our cattle rearing populations and other livestock producers transform their economic system to match the modern needs have been highly inadequate. Now, contextualizing all of this within this debate, when the minister, the former Minister of Agriculture, mentioned the Ruga, I've seen many publications and many opinions with that. Many people asked, what is the Ruga? What is the content? What it is about? What does it contain? This has not been explained by the minister before he left, neither by the officials of the Federal Ministry of Agriculture after the minister has left. So suddenly, we understood in courts that contracts have been awarded for Ruga. And I think that's what sparked up some of these statements. And I totally agree that Nigerians have the right to ask questions, to seek for government to explain to it what it wants to do. But I take exception to, taking such from parochial and narrow-based perspectives. The question is, governments have awarded contracts for Ruga. And the question for Nigerians is, what is that Ruga? What it is implied, what it is going to do? I don't know, but I can just imagine, possibly it's just to award contracts, maybe from some of the documents we have seen flying, to build a veterinary clinic, to build a human clinic, maybe to build a borehole, and maybe put some small fences around and say this is a pasture field. Possibly that's what it is, possibly that's what it is not. Nobody knew. So Nigerians should ask the right questions, not to go ahead to begin to sectionalize even things they do not understand. Now, finally, on the issue that we are talking about, many of the violence happening in rural Nigeria, and particularly northern Nigeria, are not in themselves conflicts between hardened communities and farming communities. Many, I say. That is not to say there are no conflicts arising out of the two socio-economic activities of crop production and livestock production. Some of the other conflicts are embedded on politics, and you can see the inferences made by the earlier commentator, trying to fit in the national dynamics of politics and power play into rural communities, rural livelihoods, and rural resource use. How can we live in peace with high-level caliber of Nigerians playing, the divisive political issues that they sort out at that higher national level into our rural communities? They will never allow us to live in peace. That is on one aspect. Some of them are also driven by ethnic and religious dimensions, which we always see at play, and which also people capitalize upon to gain cheap political popularity within their restricted political environments. So these are the things that drive some of these conflicts. Again, it's all well known that in Nigeria, both in the urban and rural areas, we have been faced with serious problems of insecurity. And these challenges of insecurity, which was in the past mostly within the rural, urban environments, have moved to the rural environments. And today we have a lot of criminal activities. So in certain parts of this country, every criminal activity is defined as a farmer crisis. Like he said, if it's in the early morning hours, a particular village for no reason is attacked by some people, that's pure criminality. It has nothing to do with herders, it has nothing to do with farmers. In early morning, some group of herders also might maybe attack and their cattle taken away or rustled by whichever group. That's not farmer-herder crisis, that's pure criminality. And it should be addressed as such and treated as such. And because of this, mixed interplay, Nigeria is failing to deal with the three critical issues that are before it. One, to set up policies, programs, and ways of dealing with the rising criminality, because this criminality is also mixed up and intertwined into all of these ethnic, socio-religious considerations, and so the criminals are riding on our sentiments and dealing with us ruthlessly. They don't care who you are, they don't care about your religion or your ethnicity or where you come from. They extort, they kill, and they do all they want to do. And we are busy fighting ourselves and trading the blames. The second is to deal with, this aspect of rebuilding our inter-community relationships, addressing the community-based issues and conflicts, which Nigeria was excellent in managing all over these years, and also focusing on the developmental aspect. And what's that development? Helping our rural producers to improve their productivity. So any program is, like he said, is not viewed from the professional developmental perspectives, but is viewed from the narrow ethnic, religious, political sentiments. And how can a nation move forward in that perspective?
The question will be, we all know that this narrow ethnic sentiments have existed even way before this farmer-herder crisis came to the fore. Politicians have, oftentimes played it to their advantage. It's not new. When you want to introduce something that you then know could be politicized or could become sensitive and could be an emotive issue, especially as it has to do with land, and especially as it has to do with what people consider their inheritance. You have heard allegations of a demographic alteration plan. When you're about to introduce a program that you think could be sensitive or could be subject to exploitation, do you think our government has gone about it in the right manner?
Certainly, let me bring it in this way. Let's look at the overall development program in the livestock sector, in the pastoral sector in particular. Is it driven by those people that ought to drive it? No. It's driven by politicians. Committees set up at the level of governors' forum, at these forums. Where are the professionals? Look, livestock production is not about politics, it's not about ethnicity, it's not about religion. It is a professionalism. And we have the professionals. The professionals in the ministries, they are there. The directors, the chief livestock officers, the range management officers, the veterinarians, they are all there in this country. We have huge, are we utilizing them? Are we exploiting their potentials? We have the Department of Livestock Services. We have the Department of Veterinary Services on all the states of the country. The professionals are there. They have been giving their suggestions, but who is listening to them? And so this is the challenge. So if you look at the whole of these programs, take for example, this issue of the development of the sector, it is not starting now. Take the first national development plan of Nigeria in the 1970s.
Your argument is that
into the 1980s.
Yes.
And subsequently, all of these development policies are clearly there.
So sorry to interrupt you. Your argument then is that because politicians have dominated the discussion, it's been difficult to see the professional side of things. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. In fact, what...
The reason I have to...
Exactly, that's correct. I agree with you.
I have to summarize that because I have to also take Mr. Ejembe's thoughts as well. You have heard what he said.
Yes.
And he said it's been very difficult for us to look at the issues as they are and divorce them from the sentiments, you know, which have clouded or which seem to have been a part of, you know, our political development so far so good. Do you agree with him?
I don't. Of course I don't. Because it's an excuse that people give on behalf of the government. He has agreed substantially that what ought to have been done was not done. For instance, he said, after people should have been asking questions, what does this Ruga entail? That's putting the cart before the horse. It is not for the people to begin to ask questions when government has started implementing. It's for government to think ahead, to be proactive. Say, look, we need to include people, we need to discuss with people, we need to enlighten people to know the benefits that there is in this project for them. That hasn't happened. And when people begin to ask questions within the context of a very divided nation on the basis of ethnic and religious lines, regional lines, and other lines, other fault lines, people begin to say, oh, it's politics. It is not. Moreover, and let me, maybe I need to inform you, when he talked about people being shot down, being killed in the early morning hours, a bunch of criminals, yes, I agree they are criminals. But there was a context. On the 16th of December of that year, and incidentally at the point I was part of the community leadership in the place, the same place where the signboard was mounted, it was in the same district. Now, people, a Fulani man had gone to report to the area commander a few days earlier on. And part of the vigilantes were arrested, some of the vigilantes were arrested and taken to the command headquarters in Makurdi. Now, what was the allegation? That somebody, a Fulani man, was missing in that place a number of years ago. And according to them, it appeared that it was in this location. The area commander superintends quite a number of local governments, I think 9 of them. The DPOs from 3 of them, in the location they claimed that the person got lost, that they were in contact with the person on phone. And the vigilante people say, look, let's track this phone. We are not aware that anybody like that was here. On the 6th, they were released on the 16th of December. These are records, they are files that you can check. On the 24th of December, in the early morning hours, some people, and let me make it also clear, because I'm going to come to that the Fulani people they saw, they were not looking like the kind of Fulanis that they know. That they were lighter skinned, they were different. And that the way they were speaking, they didn't think that they looked the Fulanis that they have always known. Very violent, people that they had never had a relationship with. These were the people who mowed down the people. And in this time, the people were also gathered in the morning. Yes, so people are not just speaking for the sake of speaking. And it's in the same district. No, I'm trying to link it up. It's in the same district that signpost was mounted. The same, though not in the same village, but in the district, part of the district headquarters, that the signpost was mounted. It is not politics. When people have lost their loved ones.
I'm going to ask you to hold your thoughts for us.
Thank you.
We will come back and we will finish this segment after the break. Please stay with us. Well, Salabi Momale, Permanent Commissioner, Kaduna State Peace Commission, and former Senior Lecturer, Center for Dryland Agriculture, Bayero University in Kano, and Mr. Abba Ejembe, who is a legal practitioner, are still with us in the studio, and we're looking at the controversy which has been thrown up as a result of the Ruga settlement plan. But you're about to wrap up your thoughts, providing a context under which the suspicions have grown,
yes,
and why it is that you're not exactly saying that this has been politicized. This indeed, for you, is an ethnic issue.
Beyond ethnicity. It's beyond ethnicity.
It's also what?
It's part of the failure of government to communicate its intentions. Leading people within the context that we are, leading people to begin to fear for their livelihood, even for their lives. Now, there are some clarifications that also...
I have to, because you just spoke before we went on break.
Yes.
Let me quickly take the point of Mr. Momale. You heard him there, you know, providing a context in his own area as to what had happened, and these are the kinds of things that fuel suspicions. You handle peace. how will you be dousing the suspicions that people like that feel in the communities?
Yeah, and I think that's quite a very important point. You know, for a person like me, I take exception to come into national platform like this and then begin to talk of very specific, narrow, you know, events and incidences that happen in a particular area when we are discussing broad national development issues. And these are some of the things that always mislead the listener. So basically, what are we talking about here? We are talking about...
Sorry to interrupt you,
yes,
sir.
please.
But aren't those experiences important? Because sometimes that's how people pass home their message. They're not just speaking in a vacuum. They're speaking based on experiences like this in communities.
Sure. Like I said, for everybody, it's not about one area, one group, or one socio-economic group. All over Nigeria, not only as a result of farmer harder crisis, as a result of many other crises, as a result of insurgency, as a result of youth restiveness, as a result of, you know, inter-ethnic clashes, even between groups of the same ethnic groups. It has happened all over. Hundreds of communities have been devastated. They have lost their livelihoods. Hundreds of people have died all over the country, you know, spanning over the last 2-3 decades. So it's not something that anybody will underrate or underplay or will try to cover. These are critical national issues that are before Nigeria. So what is before us? On national platforms like this, we must be as broad-minded as possible and look at these issues from a national perspective. When we are discussing national issues, when we are discussing the local context or a specific event, then we can narrow down ourselves to such events. That's actually what I imply. That's not to underrate the level of violence and destructions that Nigerians have suffered due to various forms of crisis, as well as the insecurity in Nigeria's rural landscape. What we are advocating is that please let us keep the narrow debates, let us keep the narrow sentiments, let us come up as a nation. And I totally agree that the governments, and when I say governments, I'm not only talking about federal governments, I'm talking of state governments, I'm talking of local governments, I'm talking about the key civil society organizations. Let us all come together and provide for ourselves, Nigeria, a development agenda for agriculture, a development that incorporates crops, livestock production, integrating crop livestock production systems, come out again with critical issues that have to deal with the way we relate as a people, away from some of these divisive tendencies that allow politicians to simply write on us. And then also, we have to work out mechanisms for addressing the rising criminality, away from adding it up to our development agenda. Our development agenda should be driven by people who are professionals in that field, and the security sector should be driven by people who are professionals in that field. And then we have the peace-building component, which should also be driven by our communities, by our community leadership, strengthening our community institutions, and coming up with robust policies that address our intercommunal coexistence.
Well, that is the way forward you're proposing. Yes. I'm going to ask you what is the way forward you're proposing. I'm going to ask you first and foremost if you agree that rural communities have been neglected. Do you agree?
I mean, that's obvious. I mean, everybody knows that the rural communities in Nigeria are the most neglected. But beyond that, some of the comments he has made about local context, there is a pattern, a national pattern. He's in the field, he's in the field. In Kaduna State, for instance, and I just made reference to the fact that the locals said, these are not like our Fulanis. The governor of Kaduna State is reported a few years back to have said that he paid money to foreign Fulanis from coming to kill our Nigerian citizens. So there is a context within, there are linkages. The stories are the same. This is a national context. And you can't gloss over it when people have lost human lives. What happened in Germany between 1940 and 1945, people are still talking about human lives are so valuable. You don't elevate any other thing beyond human lives. Every other thing should be tied to that. And there are two things, critical things that, particularly in terms of the context we are talking, the National Livestock Transformation Plan, I mean, he's an expert in the agricultural field. My understanding, layman understanding of livestock will not just be restricted to cattle. If you look at the National Livestock Transformation Plan, it's all about cattle. Where is the place for piggery? Where is the place for rams? Where is the place for goats?
Isn't that where we have had the biggest problem?
No, but then change the name and say this is a National Cattle Transformation Plan. When I pick a document that says the National Livestock Transformation Plan, I want to see the integration of all of this. And because this is not there, it also fuels the suspicion that this is just about an ethnic group. Secondly, the kind of debate, the kind of narrative that we hear about herders, farmers clashes. What's happening in Benue, in Taraba, in Nasarawa State, in Southern Kaduna, and also in Plateau State? We see a pattern. In Adamawa State, it's not about a clash. It's not about a disagreement. There is no disagreement. There is no farmers herders clashes. It's a narrative that people are pushing to justify what they want to do. It's about invasion of people's communities, people you don't know, people you never had a disagreement with.
So
who come to invade the communities.
What exactly?
So in terms of dealing with the solution,
yes.
The first is that government must agree that there has to be a national discourse organized, a national conversation. First, to deal with the huge human losses that have happened. You can't gloss over it. Human lives have been lost. People have been displaced. There are refugees everywhere, particularly in these states that I have mentioned. What has the government done to deal with this? How has the government tried to assuage their feelings? How has the government dealt with the refugees? If you are going to Makurdi, for instance, say a huge lot of them. How has the government helped to give them back their humanity? How has the government helped? Government must need to deal with that. Tell them that we care, that we are also part of us, we care about you. That has not happened. So the government must start by doing that. And government programs must be well communicated. Before you implement, recognize that there is deep suspicion in the land today. Government must rise above it. And like you talked about, professionals getting involved. Professional communicators, particularly from the agricultural background, and also media, must design a strategy to begin to talk to the people and say, look, these are the benefits. Well, I just raised the question of the National Livestock Transformation Plan. I'm a layman in that sector. So until it is explained properly to me, and I don't see the things that I want to see, there will be a problem. But the government can explain it. The government can communicate it to the people. Until that is done, we are going to be groping in the dark. In places like, I just referred to where the signpost of the contract was mounted, where also people have also gone ahead to conduct a corporate search on that company. It has a foreigner sitting on the board without shares. Now, that introduces all of a new dimension. And I don't think this is helpful. When we are dealing with a national issue, the local context, there are linkages. When you link them up, government must act, government must communicate. I looked at the National Livestock Transformation Plan. There are some things that are also frightening. When the government talks about watering lots, it means that you are not planning for ranches. And it's also not true that people have not sought for solution. The open grazing prohibition law of Benue and ranches establishment law 2017 of Benue State is one in that direction. If there are issues, sit down together. And I think also the government of Benue State has been saying, look, let's sit down together with the headers to discuss this. If there are the federal government should be interested in that, bring everybody on board, look at the law. And if there are gray areas that you have to clean up, clean them up so that it becomes a template for which nationally we can deal with this issue.
Well, it's a fine place to leave it, gentlemen. We have to thank you both for your contributions this morning on Sunrise Daily. Salebi Momale is Permanent Commissioner, Kaduna State Peace Commission, and former senior lecturer, Center for Dryland Agriculture at the Bayero University in Kano. And Abai Jembi is a legal practitioner. Sunrise Daily continues in a moment. Please stay with us.